Hey guys, what's up and welcome back to another episode. I hope you're all doing well and I hope you're ready for today's episode because we are talking Resident Evil. I'm going to be recapping the first 3 games from the PlayStation just to see how they hold up today. Really, it's going to be more of my personal experiences from when I first played these games and how they hold up today, and should you check them out for yourself. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get into some Resident Evil. Resident Evil is one of the most popular game series of all time, and it is still gaining popularity today. Each and every day, the series gains more and more fans, and I'm all for this because I'm glad the series is getting more fans and it gives them a chance to go back and check out the older games, which is kind of why I wanted to do this series. I wanted to go back and check out the old games and see what made them fun, what made them scary, what made them difficult, my favorite parts, and then the parts that scared me the most, as well as what you should look forward to should you decide to check this game out for yourself. Now, a little bit of history on the development. It actually started as a remake to the game Sweet Home, which you might not be familiar with, but it was actually the inspiration to Resident Evil. It was a game released on the NES back in the late 80s, and it was based on a TV show in Japan. So it makes sense as to why they would not release it here, because we don't have that show here, so we could not watch it to see what was going on. And I think it was going on around the same time, like the show was happening the same time that the game was going on, so it made sense to have both of them going on at once. And it was interesting. And the reason why they were trying to remake the game is because they wanted to add stuff into the game that they could not do before, similar to what they did with Resident Evil on the GameCube, where they could not add stuff into the original Resident Evil, so they put it into the GameCube version. And I'll talk about that in the next episode. But the game was given to Shinji Mikami, who was tasked as the leader of the project, and if you're not familiar with some of his games, he worked on things like Evil Within, Ghostwire Tokyo, Shadow of the Damned, and just a variety of other horror-related games. And he started with Disney games. Believe it or not, he started working with Aladdin, Goof Troop, and I want to say DuckTales as well. So it was interesting to see him go from kid-friendly, family-friendly games to gore, horror, spooky, survival horror, Resident Evil games. You know, it was interesting to see that shift. And really, that's all he's worked on ever since Resident Evil. And I'm all for it because I think that's what he wanted to do in general. He wanted to work on horror games. Now, something that I didn't know was that Resident Evil was almost an SNES game. It started development intended for the SNES, and they decided not to. They decided to move it and shift it to the PlayStation. So that's interesting because the game might have been more like Sweet Home, the overhead camera, similar to like the Final Fantasy games on the SNES where it was overhead camera, Chrono Trigger, same thing, but it wouldn't have been an RPG game. It would have still been a survival horror game. Now, everybody might know this as well, but the game started as a first-person shooter. And it wasn't going to work out because the technical limitations of the PlayStation would not allow it. So they turned it into a third-person fixed camera angle style game, and that is what we knew and loved for the longest time, from 96 to 2002, when the last tank control Resident Evil game came out with Resident Evil 0. Again, I will talk about that in a future episode as well. But for now, I want to talk about the original Resident Evil, how it holds up today, and what you should look forward to should you play it yourself.
That was too close. You were almost a Jill sandwich.
You're right.
So in all good trilogy fashion, I must start with Resident Evil 1. Now, this is a game that I first heard about and I first saw about when I was reading a Game Informer magazine back in the 90s. And back then, Game Informer was a great magazine, so I remember getting one in the mail and thinking, oh, Resident Evil, well, what is this? And it had a zombie on the front, and I thought, okay, this is cool because I'm currently playing through Zombies Ate My Neighbors, so I really want to check this game out. But I did not have a PlayStation at the time, so all I could do was really just look at the pictures and everything and think, okay, this game looks cool, but I can't play it right now because I don't have the PS1, or the PlayStation as it was called at the time. And really, throughout the mid to late 90s, all I saw was the Resident Evil 1 and 2 within gaming magazines, and I thought, this game really looks cool, but I can't play it. And I remember a friend of mine back in school said, hey, this game's awesome, you really need to check it out, but I couldn't. I didn't have a PlayStation, so I couldn't check it out. Now, fast forward, or go forward in time to 1999, when I was reading another gaming magazine. I believe it was also Game Informer. It might have actually even been Expert Gamer, if anybody remembers that magazine. But I was going through and I'm looking at all the previews, and it says Dino Crisis. Now, I did have a PlayStation at this time, and I saw Dino Crisis. I said, cool. I like Jurassic Park, and this game has dinosaurs in it. And then it said, from the creators of Resident Evil. So I thought, I've got to play it now. And it also gave me that push to play Resident Evil, to really get into it and play it. And I remember the weekend that I bought Resident Evil, it was only because I went to Blockbuster and they did not have a damn thing to rent at the store. Nothing was there. It was slim pickings, and I ended up renting Rampage World Tour, which was not a fun time. So I asked my mom if she could take me to the, it wasn't really called a retro store at the time because it was still like a newer game store. They sold new stuff and retro things, so I wouldn't say it was exactly a vintage store. So we go in there, and I asked the guy for Dino Crisis. Well, he said it was it was $50 at the time, and she said, no, absolutely not, that's too much money, I can't buy that for you, this and that. So I thought, okay, well, there's got to be something else in here I can get. And the guy actually says, hey, look, if you really want to play Resident or Dino Crisis, you should check out Resident Evil first. Check out this game because the controls were exactly the same as Resident Evil, and he was basically telling me if you don't like the controls in this game, you're not going to like the controls in Dino Crisis. So he wanted me to really give the game a chance, and he also recommended the director's cut, which is the only version I've ever played of this game was the director's cut. Now, I have played the original Resident Evil with just the single disc, no auto aim or anything like that. Wasn't really my thing because I'm used to the auto aim, so I played director's cut only, and I really have to thank Dino Crisis for that. So once I get home and I pop the game in, I'm sitting there, first thing I say was, wow, there are full motion video cutscenes with real life actors in it's basically movie style cutscenes, and I had only seen that in a couple of games. I think The Lost World had some of them, and I want to say Toy Story 2 hadn't been out yet, but I want to say might have not been out either, but a James Bond game did have the full motion video. So I thought this was the coolest thing. I said, oh my god, these cutscenes are real life people. I mean, now I look at it and I'm just thinking, well, it has not aged well, and definitely very much cringy at best. And I'm watching it thinking this is the coolest thing ever, because I'm going from a Super Nintendo with 16-bit graphics to a PlayStation 1 with, 3D polygons, full motion videos, live action actors, live action cutscenes. It was really cool. And I know that Sub-Zero Mythologies had that too. That was the game I was thinking of that I saw this in, and I'm just like, oh, this is so cool. Well, I get into the game. First thing I do is, where the heck am I supposed to go? Because there's no map, and I'm used to Metal Gear Solid because I played that ridiculously, religiously throughout the first year I had my PlayStation from 98 to 99. I just played Metal Gear Solid so much. So I get into Resident Evil, and I'm like, I don't know where I'm supposed to go. And I'm looking at the map thinking, I really do not know how to read this map, because I'm used to the radar in Metal Gear saying, okay, you got to go this way, that way, there's an enemy there, there's an enemy there. And really, I'm just going through Resident Evil. I'm trying to learn the controls, trying to learn everything. Had no idea where to go, and I didn't have any strategy guide, so I'm just going through every single room trying to find these items. And I knew to pick up the items because of the glimmer. You would see the glimmer, and you're like, okay, that is an item I need to pick up. Now, where do I use this item? And I'm just going through every single room to room to room, killing zombies, killing the zombie dogs. I was playing on, I think, arrange mode, so I knew where everything was in arrange mode, and then I jumped into original mode, and it's like everything's different. So that was one of the cool things, was you had these different modes, and each mode had something different, had the items in different spots. So it took me a good while to get through this game. Meanwhile, I had already completed Resident Evil 2 and 3 and Code Veronica before I had ever even completed the first Resident Evil. So when I finally did get to when I finally figured out how everything works in the game, and I figured out where everything was, I found a guide. Once I figured out how to play the game and where to find everything, where to use everything, the game became a lot more fun. And Resident Evil 2 and 3 were a little bit easier because I actually had strategy guides for those games, so I was able to figure out where to go when I was playing these games. The guide would show me, but I didn't have one for Resident Evil 1. So as I'm going through, I'm thinking, oh my god, this game is awesome, it's spooky, it's creepy, the music is great. The music in the DualShock version is not the same as what is in the director's cut non-DualShock version, because they go straight to that DualShock version and they talk about how crappy the music was. Yes, it is not the best, but in the original game and the DualShock, in the director's cut version, they had really great music. I'm not saying it was the best, but it was definitely better than what's in the DualShock version. And I'm just going through, and all the twists and turns, there's so many things happening, and I'm just sitting here going, what is going on with these characters? You find out Wesker is actually the bad guy, and he's been working for Umbrella the whole time, and you're just like, what? And then he just straight up gets impaled by Tyrant. If you're playing as Chris, he gets impaled. I think if you're playing as Jill, he just gets knocked out. And you're just like, well, dang, he just got impaled by this giant monster's claws. And you finally complete the game. And I'm just sitting there going, wow, I finally beat this game. It is awesome. It is great. The ending music is probably some of the best in the entire game. It's very much a 90s ending credits song. But one of the cool things about this is that you had two characters to play as in Resident Evil 1 and Resident Evil 2, which I'll talk about when I get to the Resident Evil 2 section, but you had two characters to play as, and each one of them has their own different storyline going on. So you have Chris going through the storyline with him, and he's got Rebecca as his basically side character, and he runs into Wesker at a certain point. So there's not a lot of characters in each storyline. There's basically, you have Chris and Rebecca in his storyline, you have Jill and Barry in her storyline. And the interesting thing about Chris's story is that you never ever see Barry again throughout his entire story. So a lot of people say that Jill's story is the one that's canon because Barry does come back later on. But I just like that you could go through both character storylines and see two different sides of the story, two different things going on, and basically what was going on when this person was going on, what was going on when this person was going on. And the same thing happens, one character gets captured and you can't find them. And so if you're playing as Chris, obviously Jill gets captured. Playing as Jill, Chris gets captured. And you have to basically figure out where they were. And you're just going through each character's story. But you come across, there's a lot of stuff that's the same. The only dialogue that's different is when you're with Rebecca and Barry. They both have their own set of dialogue options. Those two never meet, as far as I know, never meet in this series at all. You don't see Rebecca in Jill's story. You don't see Barry in Chris's story. So it was kind of cool that they had that, and it wouldn't be until Resident Evil 2 when they kind of changed that up. So like I said, you're going through the same story, have the same plot devices, everything's the same in both characters' stories, but you have different things that happen. Like Chris can't use a lockpick. Jill's the only one that can use a lockpick. Chris has to find these little small keys, which sometimes can be a little bit of a pain because you don't know where they are. I had the game memorized, so I kind of know where everything is except for those keys because I don't ever really play as Chris in this game. I always play as Jill simply because of the lockpick. But the thing is, if you play as, I believe they say Chris is the hard mode and Jill is the easy mode. So if you're playing as Chris, he's actually a little more difficult. He can take more hits, I believe, but I think he also has less ammo and less. Obviously, he does have less inventory spots, so you got to pick and choose what you're going to carry with him. Jill has more inventory slots, so she has a little more to carry. And the good thing is she has the lockpick, so you don't have to worry about carrying a bunch of small keys just to get through door to door to door. And like I said, I really like playing as Jill because she can unlock the lockpick doors, and you don't have to worry about finding those keys, because finding those keys, you find them and you just got to be like, okay, I've got to drop some stuff off because I don't have enough room, so I need to go through and drop off all this stuff that I don't need at the inventory box, go back and get the small key, backtrack again. So it's kind of hard for a speedrunner if you're just playing as Chris, because you got to do a lot of backtracking with him, whereas Jill, you do not have to do as much backtracking. You can just go through the game, and really there's a lot of stuff you can ignore and skip over in this game that you don't even have to bother with. And I really like that they give you that option too, to just ignore stuff, especially if you have the unlimited Magnum or the unlimited rocket launcher. You can really make that game a breeze to fly through with either one of those weapons. It is awesome. I loved using the Magnum through the game. It does make it a little bit easier, so I really recommend when you play this game for the first time, try and go through it with just the inventory you were given, with the weapons you were given. Go through it with the challenges that a lot of fans went through on their first playthrough, and then try and unlock those extra weapons. I believe you can only unlock them, at least the Magnum, through arrange mode, and I believe the rocket launcher can only, well, it can be unlocked through both of them, but if you want to get the Magnum, you need to beat the game on arrange mode. So that's the only downside to that, whereas normal mode just gives you basically the rocket launcher and the closet key, which you can get new outfits, and it's pretty cool, some of the outfits. So with that being said, let's move on to Resident Evil 2, talk about my personal experiences with Resident Evil 2, because that was the one that I wanted to play the most, the absolute most out of all three of these games. So let's jump into that one.
But I'm not letting anyone leave my town. Everyone's gonna die.
Moving on to Resident Evil 2, before we get into the actual game itself, I have to go into a little bit of a brief history on this. And the game started off as what we now know Resident Evil 1.5. Now, you might be asking what's 1.5, and a lot of people, they know what 1.5 is. It's basically the beta or original version of Resident Evil 2 before they canceled it. So it started off basically the same way, but it looks drastically different from the game we have now. A lot of areas are very different. A lot of characters are actually in the game longer than they were. So Marvin was in the game a lot longer. He was a main character. Same with Kendo. He was a main character. Ada Wong, her outfit's a little bit different. She's got a lab coat. And then Chief Irons was actually nice in this game from what I've heard. He was a nicer version of a police chief and not the crazy one we got in the Resident Evil 2 that we have. So it was a lot like Jurassic Park, where things that happened in the book didn't happen in the movie, and things that happened in the movie didn't happen in the book, vice versa. Characters that survived didn't survive in the movie. Characters that died in the movie were actually alive in the book, if that makes sense. So it was very interesting, and I'm really curious, and I really would like to play that version of the game, but it's kind of hard to get a hold of it. So I'm just kind of like, I'm better off just watching gameplay of it. But Resident Evil 2 itself was one of those games that a lot of kids in school were talking about and how awesome the game was. They would say, look, you need to play Resident Evil 2. It's awesome. It's about zombies. And I knew what Resident Evil was because of the first game when I saw it in the Game Informer. I said, I know what Resident Evil is, so I do want to play it, but I don't have a PlayStation. And this is one of the games that every year I would beg my parents for a PlayStation just so I could play this one, Resident Evil 1, and Crash Bandicoot. Also, I used to get confused, and I thought Resident Evil and Resident Evil 2 were kind of the same game. I didn't realize there were two different games, because as a kid, you don't really know the difference. You're just a kid. You're like, ooh, zombies, action, it looks cool, monsters, I want to play that. But every year, my parents were like, hey, the PlayStation's kind of expensive, and I think it was about $300 at the time. So they were like, no, you just gonna have to wait. Okay, you have to wait until it goes down a little bit. And also the whole, keep your grades up and we'll get you a PlayStation. So I had to basically do that situation too. And I eventually did get one in 1998, late 1998. And I remember one of the first demo discs I have was the one that came with the PlayStation. And there was a preview of Resident Evil, and I thought, okay, let's check this out. Couldn't play the game because it was a video. It was a trailer, and I was like, oh man, this game looks so awesome. It's scary. And then there's parts where the zombies are just growling in the trailer, and it kind of scared me. I was like, damn, this is pretty spooky. I want to play this game. But I couldn't because it was just a video, and I don't know why it took me a year to play Resident Evil. Like I said in the Resident Evil 1 section, I didn't play this until 1999, and the first time I played this was on a demo disc that came with Director's Cut. And the demo disc is completely different from the main game too. I mean, a lot of areas are the same, but it's the 1997 demo, so there are some things that are in there and some items that are named differently. Like you have Precinct Key S, Precinct Key B, Precinct Key L instead of the Spade Key, the Heart Key, the Diamond Key. You have alphabetized keys. So they took that out, they changed it. And when you go to the STARS office, and I don't know if this was meant for just the demo, but Ada Wong shows up in that spot, and I'm kind of thinking, okay. And I thought that was Claire. So again, I thought Elza Walker was Claire, but then I realized, okay, it's a little different. What's going on here? These are different characters. That's when I realized, oh, 1.5 is totally different game with different characters and everything. And they wanted to make this game more connected or more like the first game, which is why they changed it too. I forgot to mention that when I was talking about 1.5. But when I finally got into the game in the demo disc, I said, okay, well, we'll play it. And this was 99, so my first inkling to playing the actual game was on the Nintendo 64. And I'm playing the N64 version, but I'm playing it in different areas. So I didn't actually play through the game fully on N64, which is something I'm going to do on this channel one day. I'm going to play through the entirety of the N64 game. But we rented it from Blockbuster, and I'm just playing through small chunks here and there. And I did eventually beat the game on the 64 version because it was at the end of somebody had save at the end of the game. So I was like, okay, let's just beat the game. It's pretty cool. So when I finally got to play the game, I didn't realize there was Scenario A and Scenario B. That is something new that was not in Resident Evil 1. It's basically the same as the Chris Redfield storyline and the Jill Valentine storyline, except both of those stories, you're getting the same items each time, and you're going through the same situations each time, basically, with either Barry or Rebecca. Now, in Scenario A and B, they had what they call now is the zapping system. So situations that would happen in Scenario A would affect what happened in Scenario B. And I thought that was really cool. I said, okay, if I pick up this item here, Claire can't get that item in her game. So if I pick up the machine gun, she can't get the machine gun. So I would always leave the carrying pack for her because she did not have enough ammo or enough item slots to carry things. So basically, the Redfields don't have enough pockets to carry things, if that makes any sense at all. I mean, it was something cool that I noticed, and my strategy guide that I was using for this game only covered scenario A. So I'm playing through the game. I said, well, where's the rest of the guide? There's only one guide. I think whoever wrote that strategy guide didn't realize there were 2 parts to this game, and everything in scenario B is different. Items are in different locations. You fight Mr. X, who is very much annoying when you come across him at times, and very scary at times. He'll pop up in random spots, and you'll know where he is because you'll hear the sound of his music, but then sometimes you won't hear his music at all, and he'll just pop up around the corner. You're like, oh crap, I need to go back the other direction. And I've never actually tried to leave a room and come back to see if he's gone, because I know he only disappears if you knock him out. You have to knock him out in order for him to go away, and it's just one of those things where you're like, oh damn it, do I want to fight him or do I want to run away? But I really need to get through this hallway to get to that item in the back room. And there's one hallway in past Chief Iron's office. It's a narrow hallway with his taxidermy stuff. Mr. X shows up and he's just in there, and you're like, I have no way of getting past him. How am I supposed to get past this guy? He's blocking the entire hallway because he's the size of a Goomba from Super Mario Brothers, the movie. But you can get past him if you use the unlimited ammo code, and I really recommend using that code because it's very helpful in this game. I know that ammo is very scarce in this game, very hard to find in this game, and you're just going through it trying to find as much ammo as possible. So use that unlimited ammo code. It works in every single version of the game except for the original non-DualShock release on PlayStation 1. That's the only version that this code does not work on. The reason I got the DualShock version was because of that unlimited ammo code. I said, hey, if this helps me, I'm gonna get it for the I'm gonna get the DualShock version. So Mr. X, he pops up here and there, and one spot in particular, when you're in the press conference room and you light up the little furnaces and you go to get the gear for the clock tower or the bell tower, Mr. X just crashes through that wall. And one time I did fight him, and I said, okay, I've destroyed him, whatever, he's knocked out. And then one time I was just like, I don't feel like running past it. I don't feel like fighting this guy, so I'm gonna leave and get the little gear and get out of here. Well, when you're going around the corner, he barges through the wall again, and I was not expecting it, and it scared the absolute hell out of me when it happened because I was not expecting him to just barge through the wall there. And he does it in the remake too, but it's kind of random how it happens. You have to really set it up a certain way for it to happen, but it happened the same way in the Resident Evil 2 remake, and I thought, holy crap, you guys actually kept one of the original scares in the remake. That is so awesome. Now, as far as the game as a whole goes, I mean, you're going through the police station and the sewer area and the streets and a bunch of different areas. It's not just one mansion, going from the mansion to the guardhouse to the underground to the lab. I mean, you go to a lot of different spots here. So you start off in the streets, you end up in Kendo's shop, then you end up in the back alleys, and then you end up over near the police station, and then you end up in the police station, which then leads to the underground sewers, then to the marshalling yard, then to the I think another underground area, and then to the laboratory. So there's a lot of areas in this game, and it basically doubles the amount of what's in Resident Evil 1. And I've been able to complete this game in one go before, just with the scenario A. Scenario B is kind of one of those things where you got to play it a couple times, or it takes 3 to 4 hours to complete the game. I mean, on your first try, it's going to take a little bit to get through the game, but once you get used to it and know where everything is, then it becomes a lot quicker. If you're just trying to speedrun it, it's very quick to get through. You can't skip cutscenes, unfortunately, which kind of stinks, but, it is what it is. Some of the cutscenes are pretty cool. Now, some of the other enemies, you got your zombies, your lickers, your dogs, the birds, the giant spiders. I don't think there's any snakes in this game that I know of that I can remember. But there's also these plants that show up at the end, and they're kind of annoying because you'll shoot at them constantly and nothing's happening, and you're just like, how am I supposed to destroy these things? So I always use the Magnum on those guys and just knock them down, take them out, because they shoot poison at you and you will get poisoned. And if you don't have any blue herbs, it's one of those situations where you're like, oh crap, I have no blue herbs. So that's just some of the things that made this game scary to me. And there are other versions of the game. Like I said, there's the N64 version, and then there's also the Dreamcast version and the GameCube version. That one's a little hard to find these days, and if I've seen it, it's been stupid expensive. Now, I don't know why, but I actually own, really, a lot of the Resident Evil games today are pretty expensive if they're older ones, but Resident Evil 2, I do own it on PS1, Dreamcast, and N64. Now, I've already played through the Dreamcast version on a stream here. I definitely want to play through the PS1 version again, as well as the N64 version, and I'm hoping and praying that we do get Resident Evil 2 on PlayStation Plus Premium sometime soon, because I would love to play that game. Now, I don't know if they'll add trophies to it, because Resident Evil Director's Cut doesn't even have trophies, which kind of stinks, but I hope one day they do add trophies to it. But really, you know, Resident Evil 2, like I said, has always been one of my favorite games in the series. I have loved this game from day one, and I still, you're gonna find this crazy, but I still use my game save from the very first time I played this game. It's been converted and switched to many different memory cards, USB drives. My PS3 has it, my other USB drive has it, 3 memory cards have it on there. I use the same game save from the very first time I played this, which is pretty nuts, but it sucks also because I can't convert that save to PlayStation 5. I'd have to restart the entire game and unlock everything again, which is not a problem. I can easily do that. Now, speaking of unlockables, you do get unlockable special weapons if you beat the game in a certain time without using health herbs. I mean, sorry, not health herbs, first aid sprays. If you don't use any first aid sprays, you get an A rank with special weapons to use, and I thought that was the coolest thing because the first game had it too. And then this one has even more special weapons like a Gatling gun, a submachine gun, a rocket launcher, but you also get to unlock mini games. And if you beat the game, I believe in under, you know what, I forget the unlock requirements for Fourth Survivor, but you can unlock Fourth Survivor Hunk mode, which is a super difficult mode. It's very hard to get through. Even with unlimited ammo, I had a huge bit of trouble trying to get through that mode because it was just kicking my butt left and right. And it's even tougher in the remake. But the other mode, and this one's even tougher, is Tofu mode. That one, all you get is a knife, I believe. And I've never been able to unlock that because I think you had to beat the game 6 times in a row. So scenario A, B, A, B, A, B. And that might be how you get Hunk, is you have to beat it 4 times in a row or something. Or I think to get Hunk, you have to get under 3 hours or under 2 hours. No, I think it's under 3 hours with an A rank to get Hunk mode. And I did it once. My memory card got corrupted, lost it, had to do it again. And it's really one of those things where you're just like, when you're trying to get it, you really want to get it. But Tofu mode, I believe you have to beat the game 6 times in a row to get it. And I've played that mode using like a Game Shark and everything. No, thank you. It's tough. I am just like, not with just a knife. Nope. Now, one interesting mode that was in the the DualShock version is the Extreme Battle. I believe it is only in the Extreme Battle, or in the DualShock mode, and the Dreamcast version and N64. I don't even know if it's in the N64 version because I have not been able to unlock any modes in there, but I know it is in the Dreamcast version, and I'm pretty sure it's also in the GameCube because those are the DualShock versions of this game. Now, it's one of those modes. It's kind of like Mercenaries, just the precursor to Mercenaries mode from Resident Evil 3, which I'll talk about when I get to that. And basically, you go through stopping bombs from exploding, and you start off as Claire and Leon, but when you play a certain mode as Claire, you unlock Chris Redfield, and when you play a couple levels as Leon, you unlock Ada. But here's the interesting thing about Chris. The reason he is even in this game is because his audio files were used for Leon in the original Resident Evil 1.5 beta. So when you got bit or attacked by enemies, you heard the sound effects of Chris from Resident Evil 1. And I didn't know this for the longest time. I always wondered why Chris was even in the game, but I thought, oh, it's because of Claire. And a friend of mine told me, no, it's because they had his audio files in the game and they just decided to keep him in there. So that's why he's even in this mini game. And it's so cool, that little bit of detail there. But really, that's about it I have to say about Resident Evil 2. I mean, I could go on all day talking about this game and how much I love it. But let's move on to Resident Evil 3 and see what made this game so special, because Resident Evil 3 is another one that a lot of fans absolutely love to play and love to talk about as being one of the best Resident Evil games of all time.
The police aren't trained for this kind of situation. What could they do? Listen, he's coming for us. We're both gonna die.
As we move on to Resident Evil 3, This is one of those games in the series, much like Dino Crisis, that gave me that itch that needed to be scratched. And that itch was to play Resident Evil. I needed to play it, but again, I was hooked on Metal Gear Solid. I really wasn't playing anything else through 1998 and 1999. Not until the fall of 99 when I first got Resident Evil 1 Director's Cut, that's when I started getting into the Resident Evil series. So once that happened, this is also around the time where I was reading magazines and seeing the promotions and the articles and previews for Resident Evil 3, and I thought, okay, this looks interesting. But also Code Veronica was being promoted and previewed as well at the same time, because that was coming out the following year. More on that game in another episode. So when I finally started playing Resident Evil, I said, I can play Resident Evil 3 now. So I started reading the previews, reading the articles, reading all about Resident Evil 3, and just how awesome the game was. But I had no idea that it was taking place before Resident Evil 2, and that it was technically a spin-off, or it started off as a spin-off, and then Capcom said, hey, the game would probably do better as a numbered sequel. And I really don't know the full story on this, but it was not supposed to be Resident Evil 3. It was supposed to just be Resident Evil Last Escape, which is why you see that in the opening title sequence, or sorry, Nemesis, but in other countries it is called Resident Evil Last Escape. So this was supposed to be a spin-off, and it feels like a spin-off because you're going through a lot of the same areas as you did in Resident Evil 2. A lot of areas are boarded up that weren't boarded up in Resident Evil 2. A lot of areas you didn't get to go to in Resident Evil 2 you get to go to here, such as the hospital, the graveyard, the clock tower, the park, all of those different areas. And it was just one of those games that was so awesome to think, hey, Leon and Claire are running around this same city right after Jill and Carlos get through there. So at one point when Jill gets infected by Nemesis, once that sequence of Carlos's gameplay is over, then that is when Leon and Claire show up. So you're thinking, okay, they're here somewhere, and Mr. X is chasing them. We got Nemesis chasing us. Now, Resident Evil 3 did add some new mechanics, such as the dodge mechanic and the, auto aim towards objects, which were explodable, destructible objects such as the red barrels. But there are also some other objects that you can destroy, such as the plate of stacked wood that's hanging up in the brain sucker area. You can actually shoot that and knock it down. And some other destructible environments are the lights in the park area when you're fighting the gravedigger, or the graboid as I called it, because it looks like a graboid from Tremors. You can just shoot a bunch of different items and have them fall and cause some kind of destruction. And it's really good to have those, and really convenient when you have a bunch of zombies coming through and you're just thinking, oh man, I got a group of zombies coming at me and I need them to go away and leave me alone at all costs because I don't want to fight them. And it's really convenient having an explosive barrel right there. Now, one cool thing about this game also was the branching paths and the choices you can make throughout the game, such as you want to fight Nemesis or you want to run away. Now, a lot of these choices do have different cutscenes. So if you choose to fight Nemesis in the kitchen area of the restaurant, then you might have Carlos show up in the news conference room, or you might have Nikolai show up in the area where you get the oil additive to use for the train. So depending on what you choose and where you go first will depend on which character shows up where. So the interesting thing is, if you have Carlos show up in the gas station, he'll go out and fight the zombies. But if Nikolai shows up in the gas station, a wire will explode and cause an explosion and fire and everything, and you think he's dead, but he's actually not. So that's one interesting thing about that, is that you can do branching pathways and have the characters show up at different spots. And then it's the same in the hospital. You come across Tyrell and you'll have either you'll have either him opening up a safe and a bomb exploding on him with just Carlos, or you'll have Carlos and Nikolai both there, and when the safe opens up, you'll have it blow up, but then Nikolai jumps out the window. And this is one of those situations where Nikolai did not cause an explosion at the side of the gas station, or the explosion didn't happen with him in there because Carlos was there. And in that case, Nikolai was in the press conference room where you get the oil and everything. So that's where he was, and he gets attacked by zombies, so you assume, oh, he's dead. Now, depending on where he is, if he's in the gas station or the newsroom, the press room, you assume, oh, he's dead, but he's really not, because he shows up again. Now, one cool thing is the ending to the game. You do get a bonus ending, and with that bonus ending, it's basically when Nikolai shows up at the end with the helicopter. I get a flashback a little bit. You have to choose to push or jump off the bridge when Nemesis attacks you in the final, right after the Gravedigger fight. When you're going across the bridge, you'll see Nemesis, and you can choose to either push him off or jump off. Now, if you jump off, that is when you get the bonus ending, and then you have to let Nikolai either go away or shoot down the helicopter, which I found out that if he goes away, that's the canon ending, which I never knew. But if you shoot down the helicopter or he leaves, that's it. No helicopter. And then, at the end of the game, Barry Burton shows up to help Jill, which is very interesting because, she says to him, "Is that you?" And you're thinking, Jill, this is just a few months after what happened at the mansion. So, it's Barry. Why are you asking if it's him? So, to me, when I was a kid, I thought, oh, it's because you haven't seen him in a couple years or whatever. And as a kid, you think the games just are years apart, and they're really not. It's just one big, long year. 1998 for Resident Evil 2, 1, 2, and 3. Now, let's talk about Nemesis for a minute. This thing is ruthless. He does not stop. He will not stop. He is basically the bioweapon or Terminator in bioweapon form. He will follow you throughout the entire game, and you can destroy him and knock him down. At least you can defeat him, and he'll stop following you for a little bit. But if you choose not to fight him at any point in the game when he shows up, he will follow you through each room that you run through. The only room he cannot follow you through is the save room. So just know that when you're running through, and this is one of those things where I'm just thinking, oh my god, this thing is following me. I have no ammo. I'm screwed if he hits me. I need to get away from him as quickly as possible. Otherwise, he's just going to keep chasing after me. So it's one of those things where you really just want to knock him down if you can. If you have the ammo, you want to just get rid of him and have him not follow you, not chase after you anymore, because he can be a pain in the ass. I'm not going to lie. Now, the cool thing about it is if you're playing the game on hard mode, he actually drops items if you defeat him. If you manage to defeat him, he will drop an item such as, weapon upgrades, ammo, health, and then the biggest one of them all at the end, unlimited ammo to use for only one weapon though. So you got to choose wisely on that one. And I've told people before, because I've had people ask me in my mercenaries mode video, which I'll talk about in just a second, can I use this for the rocket launcher? And yes, you can. If you want to hold on to that unlimited ammo until you get that rocket launcher at the end of the game, by all means use it on that rocket launcher, because it will help in that final boss fight on hard mode. And speaking of hard mode, when you complete the game on that mode, you get to unlock a bunch of different epilogues. There's 8 epilogues, and you have to beat the game 8 times in order to see all of them. So what's cool about these is that you see what each character was up to during the events of Resident Evil 3, or during the events of Resident Evil 2 and 3, or after the events of both games, such as Ada, Hunk, Barry, Claire, Leon, which Leon's doesn't make sense because everything that they said in that little epilogue for him played no part in Resident Evil 4. So I think they were trying or were going to do that, but they ended up not doing it, and it ended up being Ashley that he was protecting instead of Sherry. I don't know the whole story on that, but I know that a lot of people were like, hey, this epilogue for Leon doesn't even play into Resident Evil 4. So it was a cool thing, a cool option to have. And really, when you think about it, the hard difficulty in this game is the real game, because you get to see the epilogues. And my advice for the hard mode, and even on easy mode or normal mode, complete the game, play the mercenaries mode when you're done. Please, you will enjoy the mercenaries mode, and this was the first game to feature the mercenaries mode, Operation Mad Jackal. Now, what's cool about this one is that you can unlock a variety of unlimited weapons, from the Gatling gun, the rocket launcher, the machine gun, or the assault rifle, and then you can just get your regular infinite ammo. Now, that is $9,999, so you're going to be playing through the mercenaries mode quite a bit just to get that money up there. And cool thing about mercenaries mode is the more you kill zombies, the quicker you are, and the quicker you are to kill zombies and combos you can bring up and everything, the more money you get at the end. So the more time you have at the end of the game and combos and everything, I really don't remember how much it plays into it, because I've always got like an A ranking in the mercenaries mode, but the more that you rack up your time and combos and everything, the more money you get at the end. So the more time you have at the end, the more money you get. So that's what you really want to do, is you want to keep racking up those combos, save those survivors throughout the mini game, because they do give you a good chunk of money. There's one spot in particular where you'll see Nemesis and he jumps off the top of that bus that's crashed. If you manage to knock that one down, now this is Nemesis after he's been shot and his trench coat is gone and he's just got the tentacle arm and he's missing like his shirt basically. manage to knock that one down, you can get a full up to, I believe, 2 to 3 minutes if you manage to knock him down. And he's one of the harder ones in the game, in the minigame. And I'm not kidding, Nemesis shows up a lot in the minigame. There's at one point you fight 2 of them in a row, so you'll fight one Nemesis, and then another Nemesis, and then 2 Nemesis. So if you're playing as Mikhail, sorry, not Mikhail, if you're playing as him, save your rocket launcher for Nemesis, please save it for him. But I know a lot of people have told me before they're good with dodging with Nikolai and Carlos, and if you're good with dodging for those 2 characters, you can definitely get through the minigame. I myself have never really tried to get through the minigame as them. I've always had a lot of trouble with them, so I'm just like, you know what? I'm going to stick with Mikhail because he's got the weapons I need to get through this minigame and everything. I'm going to stick with him. Carlos is manageable, but Nikolai is a little bit tougher to get through this minigame with him. So, yeah, that's pretty much it on the whole Resident Evil 3. But when I first played this game, I just remember it was a demo that came with Dino Crisis, and I was just thinking, oh my god, this game is so awesome. And then when you first come across Nemesis, I said, nope, I'm not even fighting this guy. We're going to skip over him. We're going to go away. I do not want to fight Nemesis. He is going to just knock me into next week. So I said, okay, he's gone, whatever. As I'm going back through the police station, I go downstairs and I hear a window crash, and then I hear his music, and I'm like, oh crap, he's here somewhere. Where is he? Where's Nemesis? He's going to find me. He's going to kill me or something. And you're thinking, okay, well, he's not here. I heard the window crash, but I don't see him. But as you run past that window by the stairs in the police station, that's when he just bashes through the window, and it scared the living hell out of me. I even got my sister with it because she was playing a demo, and I did not tell her what was going to happen. I said, no. Don't worry. Just go. She's like, what was that crash? I said, just go. Don't worry about it. It's nothing. Zombies, you know. So she's like, okay, zombies I can take. When she goes past the window and he breaks through the window, she screamed and ran out of the room. And I feel bad about it now, but it was kind of funny at the time because it's the same thing that got me too. And there's a lot of spots, as I mentioned in Resident Evil 2, is Mr. X just crashing through walls and stuff, scaring the absolute crap out of me. And I'm just like, oh my god, this game's insane. Now, it's a fun game, but it definitely does feel like it was more of like a DLC. And I know a lot of people said that about the remake too. It feels kind of like a DLC. And yes, it is a full-fledged game, but you can really complete the game pretty quickly if you're, quick enough with it. I've been able to complete Resident Evil 3 probably within a couple hours. I mean, all the Resident Evils I can complete within a couple hours. If you're using the unlimited weapons and just you know where everything is, you know where to go, you can complete all 3 of these games pretty quickly. But Resident Evil 3 is one of those games that's pretty fun, and I'm going to talk about, which options you can find for this game in just a minute. But for now, I want to get into my final thoughts on the first 3 Resident Evil games, what I think about them today, should you play them today.
We have to go. We don't have any time to waste.
Go? Where?
Hey, it's up to us to take out Umbrella.
As we get into our final thoughts, what can I say about Resident Evil 1 through 3 that has not been said already? They're awesome. These games are scary as hell. They still scare the hell out of me when I play them. I enjoy them. They are 3 games that I can never get tired of, and I will always play them until the end of time. Now, I know we have some newer fans to this series as well who've just played mainly 7 through 8, even the remakes of 2 and 3, or even Revelations 1 and 2. You should definitely check out the original games as well, just to see how it evolved from those into this. And if you're not a fan of tank controls and somebody else is playing it, check it out. Check out the game, watch it, see if it's something you would enjoy and want to play, because the old games are not for everybody. And I've had a lot of people tell me that they tried them and they couldn't get past the controls, or they couldn't get past the FMV cutscenes in Resident Evil 1. A variety of reasons as to why they just didn't like the originals, and that's all cool. I mean, yeah, I'm not a big fan of most of the modern games in the series, but I still play them because I still enjoy the series as a whole. Now, if you're wanting to play the originals, I recommend going digital, because the physical editions are really hard to come by, and when I've seen them in stores or pretty much online or anything, they've just been priced ridiculously. I think the last time I saw Resident Evil 2 and 3 was in a retro shop on GameCube, and it was for about $200 each. I don't know what they were thinking when they did that, and I don't think they were either, because the guy said they hated charging that much, but, times are changing, so I understand. But definitely go digital if you can. It's still available on PlayStation 3 as far as I know. You can still get them through the PSN. You'd have to add a PlayStation Plus card and everything to do it, but you can still get them. Now, if you're on PS4 or 5, you can get Resident Evil 1 Director's Cut on both consoles, but I do have to say, as of recording this, I do believe that Resident Evil Director's Cut is still locked behind PlayStation Plus for people in America, but if you are in the UK, you do not have to have PlayStation Plus in order to get this version. You can just go in and search it and download it, because some games, they said if you already own them on PS3, they're going to be free of charge, and that is one of them, because you guys got the non-DualShock version, whereas we got the DualShock clown farting in the hallway version. It's the last time I'm going to make that joke, I promise. But if you're in America, just know that you might have to actually get PlayStation Plus in order to play it. Unless they fixed it, don't quote me on that, because I don't know. I upgraded PS Plus back in June when it went live, and that was the first thing I downloaded, and it did not have a price next to it, probably because I uploaded it or upgraded it. So definitely check it out. Check out all three of these if you can. Like I said, if not, definitely watch somebody. I do stream these from time to time, so if you're around on the channel, you've probably seen some of my streams. If you're new to the channel, definitely check out those streams as well, because I've played everything from the first game all the way to the remake of 3, and that's about it right now. I'm sorry, Code Veronica was the last one I streamed, so I'm definitely going to get more into those. As for these recaps, I do want to cover all of the Resident Evil games, but I'm probably not going to do Survivor, because I just did an episode on that not too long ago, and I'll link that down below. But I felt like that was a good enough recap of it to basically be its own thing. So I think the next one I will cover will likely be Code Veronica. Just keep an eye out for that. And before we leave, I do want to know, what is your favorite Resident Evil game of all time? You know what? Let me know who your favorite Resident Evil character is as well. So favorite Resident Evil and favorite Resident Evil character, let me know down in the comments below. Before we head out, I wanted to thank everybody again for watching, and I really do enjoy making these episodes because it gives me a chance to go back to the past and relive these games with you guys and talk about these games that I loved growing up, especially for the newer audience, because there's a lot of newer retro fans coming out who didn't get to play these games. They weren't around when they first released and everything, so they're going back and trying them out for the first time now, and they're loving them. So I love the fact that I'm able to show these older games to a newer audience, and they can go back and check these games out and become fans themselves. It's just a great feeling. Now, if there are any videos or any games you would like for me to cover in a future episode, any top 5 videos you'd like for me to cover, please let me know down in the comments below. And if you did enjoy this video, be sure to check out my retro recap series, which is actually in the link down below and the title card right above there. So definitely check that out, and y'all have a good one.